Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dyer Lycaeus, and today I am going to analyze the leaked ballot data from Clark County, Nevada. Now, Harris won Clark County with a overall 50.4% of the total votes over Trump's 47%. And what is interesting is that with the leaked data we've been provided, we see a huge change between mail-in ballots and election day results. And we can see how the tabulators counted those votes. I'm going to highlight mail-in voting here. For mail-in voting, Harris won with 61.4% over Trump's 36.4%. And mail-in ballots in Clark County counted for 47.7% of the total votes. Now, what this highlights is this is mail-in ballots for 2024. And across the 6 voting tabulating machines that counted mail-in ballots, we see that around a little more than 60% is specifically pro-Democrats, while Trump came in a little under 40%. What's interesting here, keep in mind, Democrats heavily favor mail-in voting. Now, if we break this down further, Harris, with mail-in ballots, matches her party, in this case, Rosen, and yet, if you have watched any of my other videos, you've seen consistently across the swing states, Harris always underperforms her party. Overall, this gives credibility that these mail-in votes were counted correctly and that there was no noticeable tabulator hack impacting their counts. Not seeing anything to suggest abnormal activity. As I said, there is a clear distinction. Around 60% were pro-Democrat. Now, if we look at 2020 drop-off of votes in Nevada as a whole, and I've highlighted Clark County here, we're going to see the same trend we see in every other swing state. In 2020, Biden closely matched his party, slightly exceeded, slightly fell below, but pretty consistently matched. Trump consistently matched his party. The only outlier was in Lander County, which I believe was a Republican House candidate lost to a Democratic House candidate. These things happen, but that is an outlier. Just something to highlight. Now, what's interesting is in Clark County, we see Biden won the county, somewhat consistently matched his party. Trump lost the county, somewhat consistently matched his party. Now, if we compare this graph to 2024, we're going to see some changes. 2024, we see the same problem that we've seen in every other swing state, where Harris, dark blue line, underperforms her party for the House, running House, Rosen, and Trump overperforms his party, dark red line. His party is brown for a House candidate. And we see this all the way across Nevada, except in a few places. Except in White Pine, I'm curious if they did hand counts or if they had a different process for their vote counting, and that's why we may see this number come more normal. I'd like to look into that. And then as you see in Washoe and Clark County, these are what we're going to be highlighting with the next set of data as well. But overall, Harris won those counties. And what's interesting is if you look at how she won these counties, well, if there was some manipulation and we're seeing these trends of drop-off votes being abnormal, how could she win these counties? Well, if you look, Harris slightly exceeded Trump, even though Trump was overperforming, Harris was underperforming. So there was enough votes pro-Harris in this county to push her above the threshold of 50%. And as I said, remember what I said, 47% of the votes in Clark County specifically were mail-in votes. So we're seeing a amount of the votes that weren't manipulated adding to her totals. And some of my last videos I talked about, well, if you had a way to manipulate voting machines and it's either a election day hack or something else, you want to dissuade any other form of voting, mail-in voting, abstain. You don't want any other type. You want people to vote only in that window that you can influence, or else you're going to get outcomes like Clark County, where mail-in votes are giving Harris the win. Now, if we continue on just a little bit, we're going to look at election day data in Clark County in 2020. Now, a few things to highlight here. This graph shows tabulator results by total. That means left, this up and down axis, this is 100%, 0%. So this is the 50 mark. We're going to see a mirroring across the 50% mark. So as Trump exceeds his percentages, Biden gets the remaining half. That's how it works. Now, as we go right, this is the amount of votes counted, the amount of ballots counted per tabulator. So there's a range of tabulators, and so each tabulator 200 votes per 400 votes. So as the amount of votes they count increases, this is what this axis is. So as we go up, we start to see some patterns. Now, I wanted to highlight this data specifically to use it as a baseline for what a more normal data set looks like for this type of graph, for these votes. There's a close 50-50 split in the majority of this graph. Up until around the 600 mark, it's pretty consistent. It's pretty, we get a slightly higher Biden votes in the beginning, Trump votes in the end. But overall, it's pretty mixed right here in the middle. As I said, this is Clark County for 2020. Now, this is kind of weird. Seeing after the 600 count mark, we see this split. This is anomalous, but I'm here to focus on the 2024 election. So I'm just going to gloss over this for now, but I may come back and talk about this later. But yeah, this is kind of strange seeing this split here. We should see more of this type of mixed data because there's no reason that as you count more votes, there should be any patterns. Okay. Now we're going to look at the 2024 data for Clark County. What immediately jumps out at you here? Well, we see a clear disconnect as the amount of ballots counted increases past, I put this mark here somewhere after the 300. This is, closer to 380 or so. So as these tabulators exceed 380 ballots counted, we begin to see heavy separation where Harris's average counts begin to be capped around the 40% mark, while Trump's minimums sit around the 60% mark. Why would we see this? And it gets stronger as we progress, up until we get a clear split, almost no overlap. Why would there not continue to be this mix of results as the counts increase, right? This middle part here. More in line with what we saw in 2020. Well, this is it. This is the hack. This may be why Clark County leaked this data. We could have been wrong about it being an election day hack. And instead, this hack could have been, it may just activate after a certain threshold of ballots are counted. It may not require just election day. We don't know. It could be both. It could be election day and a split or not. But what it does is once a certain threshold of ballots are counted, we start to see this gradual increase in flipping votes. And so this type of hack would have other symptoms, such that recounting more than 400 votes per tabulator, we'd start to see large shifts from the original vote data to Trump. And continuing to feed more ballots in after that 400 mark would see this hard switch take over, where we'd start to see 60% minimum Trump, 40% Harris. It further cements the theory that Trump benefited from a vote flipping algorithm. The key signs are that Harris consistently underperformed her party, underperforms all across the state nearly, while Trump consistently overperforms his. And we see this polarized vote splitting as the ballot count increases. These are two major signs that if there was a hack, this would indicate that. So, do you believe the 2024 election was rigged? Thank you.